Thank you, each of you this morning for your contributions. I think it's clear we recognize that the benefits that energy storage can bring, it's not going to, I think Mr. Folk, you said there's no silver bullet out here, but this is clearly a component piece, one that adds flexibility, one that gives us some room to run here. And understanding how we have really seen a significant increase in energy storage deployment over this past decade here is impressive. Several of you have mentioned the FERC Order 841. There's also Order 845 designed to improve the interconnection process for energy storage resources. Mr. Ott, you've outlined some other areas where it would be important to get some guidance or indicators from FERC that would help to clear the regulatory path for energy storage. In addition to what Mr. Ott has outlined, is there anything else that any of you would suggest that FERC needs to look to with regards to regulatory obstacles that are in the path of further deployment of energy storage? I'll throw that out to any one of you. Mr. Kurosami, and then Mr. Davidson.
Sure. I think as I mentioned in my written and the oral testimony, the subject of storage as transmission needs to be studied further. I think there may be structural deficiencies in the way we actually look at that subject. It's an area that we haven't seen much traction overall in the market, even though we have had the broader construct of Order 1000 that created the pathway for potentially non-wires alternatives to be considered in regional transmission planning processes. We still haven't seen a lot of success come through from that front. And so I think that may be an area that is worthwhile to do a little more exploration. It could be potentially notice of inquiries or technical conferences with the right subject matter experts to figure out what issues are being impediments towards deploying storage for transmission and distribution needs.
Very good. Mr. Davidson? Did you have anything that you wanted to add?
Yes, ma'am. Senator, I would like to add, Brookfield is the single largest private owner of FERC hydro license. We deal with FERC and stakeholders around relicensing our facilities on a continuous basis. It's arduous. However, it is well known. It can take upwards of 5 years to relicense a single facility, but we know how to do it. We do it well, and FERC in the process is known. I'd say that it's like any other process. There's always ways to improve, but I'd say that because we know how to do it and we know the way to go through the process, it works well.
Let me keep on with you, Mr. Davidson, because you mentioned the length of time for a permitting process, but we also recognize that well pumped hydro storage is the most commonly used form of storage, 95%. It's also my understanding that any new projects are almost cost prohibitive. I'm told that on average, any new project is $1 billion, average is $1 billion, limited to certain geographic locations, and certainly take a longer time. How do we get around this hurdle? Because you've got regulatory hurdles, but you also have economic hurdles.
I think it's more of an economic hurdle right now. I think where the market is today, we don't see the price signals that justify the investment in new pump storage. So there will have to be some sort of incentives or other ways to encourage that type of investment.
Well, around this committee, we've been talking a lot about resilience. And Mr. Kurosami, you mentioned the importance of storage when it comes to maintaining grid operations during natural disasters. Do you think that storage takes on perhaps a more heightened role in these areas, these parts of the country where they're seeing perhaps more disaster-prone situations where the economic challenges that you speak of, that we've been having a problem with, can can get that more clear market signal, because we've got to have something that stands as that tempering agent, if nothing else.
Absolutely. No, I think that's a great question. And I want to give you one example that I've highlighted in the return testimony. One of our parent companies, the AES Corporation, actually has two 10-megawatt energy storage arrays that they've deployed in the Dominican Republic. If you go back to September 2017, during Hurricanes Irma and Maria, Dominican actually had a significant impact from the hurricanes. And we have actually seen that the storage arrays provide a significant amount of frequency control for the island grid, even though about 40 to 50% of the traditional generation has been offline in the Dominican Republic in the same time frame. So storage can do that because it is simply the best tool that you have to manage the variations in frequency. And it takes a much more important turn when you go into islanded grids that have limited resources to actually balance the grid, and more so during disaster conditions when one or two of your significant generation sources may be offline for a fuel reason or for different reasons. And so that is a great point in the sense that the value that storage provides in adding to system resilience is significant. Again, AES and Siemens have actually provided for a similar plan in Puerto Rico, where it's a concept of creating mini grids in Puerto Rico where you can have solar and storage co-located in a manner that adds significant resilience to Puerto Rico, and redesigning and reshaping that overall electric grid in a manner that is much, much more resilient than the current infrastructure.
Thank you. Thank you all.